Welcome to the Lead Magnets Podcast, a show for business leaders who want clarity on their marketing direction to help them grow and scale their business to the next level. I'm Julie Nichols, owner of Julie Nichols Marketing.
And I'm Dan Gershenson, owner of Caliber Brand Strategy and Content Marketing. We are two fractional chief marketing officers who lead marketing departments for small and medium-sized businesses who want to level the playing field and level up.
And today we are talking about exhibiting at events, the before, the during, and the after. So this is one of Dan's specialties. And so he's going to be doing a lot of the talking today, and I'm going to be doing a lot of the question asking. So Dan, I would love for you to just start us off with, your business. You want to be an exhibitor, or you've been exhibiting at events where there's other booths, and maybe you feel like you don't know where to start, or maybe you've been doing this already and you're like just feeling like you're not getting the most out of it. So I would love to hear everything about what you've experienced with these, because I've never been on that side of it. And P.S., our next episode is going to be the opposite. It's going to be about attending a trade show and how you can optimize your visit as an attendee, which I have a lot of experience in. But Dan's going to tell us about what you do at the actual booth and how you can prepare, and then how you can follow up after the event. All right, Dan. Yes. So what do you take us away, man?
Well, I think exhibiting at events, just as you said, Julie, it's the before, during, and after, which some people don't even think about those three things. They many times are thinking about am I going to what am I going to have there? What are we going to do there? And they sometimes forget about warming people up for, to know that they're going to be there and to know where they're going to be at this place. And so that's one thing that often gets really kind of left to the wayside. But then another hidden part there is that after is, okay, it's still fresh in their mind. But let's remember, there's a lot of other people that they saw. So how do they remember you very quickly after the event? They're still got that marinating in there that, oh yeah, that place, that guy that I talked to, they kind of need you to keep that momentum going in order for them to remember you at all. So that's really a good place to start, is to really think of this as, don't think of this as one event, almost think of it as three, where you are going to say, all right, what are we doing for the event, the before event? What does that entail? How is that a really good effort? And the thing that I always notice, I'm sure you have too, is nobody ever leaves enough time for that before part.
Yes, I typically seen. Oh my God, when I go to trade shows and I'm registered to go as an attendee, and then I'm getting emails like literally the morning of, like, oh, don't forget, stop by our booth. I'm like, who are you? Yeah. What? So it's like, talk to me about the timeline. Like, how early before the event should these, exhibitors be reaching out to the attendees and like getting that attendee list, and like what's the best way to manage it, especially if it's like a really large event where there's like maybe thousands of attendees? Like, what are some best practices for preparing all that?
Yeah, and I'm gonna go just one step even before that, which is, what kind of potential booth area are you going to have? Because they really don't think about sometimes the size of what they want, and they don't think necessarily about the time required to put something together. Now, I've seen some people who say, "Oh, we can put it up in no time, and it's great and all that." Yeah, that's fine, but why do you want to do that to yourself? Like, forget about the fact that, yeah, maybe they can put up a booth like right before and they can start brainstorming and whatever. But do you really want like 48-hour booth to go kind of stuff? You want something that is going to be impactful, well thought out, and really represents your brand well. And So I do think it is not something you want to think about 2 or 3 weeks before. You really would want to think about almost twice as long as that, like 6 weeks out, even 2 months out, if possible, which some people just do not do. But there's no such thing in my mind as doing that too early,
Yeah, I
because
totally
that part of,
agree.
yeah, because
Because it's
that
like,
part
and
of
it
it,
depends on how big you want to go. Because, like,
yeah,
I've seen booths where it's like a huge piece of land and they need
oh
to
yeah,
work months and months in advance to
hell yeah,
design and get all of that, the walls and the carpet and the lighting. And it's like it's putting on a production, it's putting on a
oh
freaking
yeah.
play.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, some of these, those ones, especially that you're talking about, oh my gosh, that's exactly a whole other level. People who have maybe spent $500,000 to $1 million in a booth, I can't even sometimes comprehend that, for that much money spent in like 3 or 4 days. It just blows
Yeah.
my mind sometimes. But even, when some people are saying, "Oh, we just have this area. We just have this much to work with." Well, whatever this much is, it's probably a, enough that you want people to spend some time in it, in front of it, and to make it as impactful as humanly possible. So every detail that you can think of for that, the longer you have to work with someone who's really experienced, not an order taker in my mind. Don't just have someone who, okay, what do you want? Like, I don't love those kinds of vendors. I like somebody who says, that's an interesting idea. Have you thought about this? This
Yes.
tends to work well for us in these kinds of areas. Great. You want someone like that, I think. And so, yeah, I think for, say, a more standard size booth, really a couple months out would be great. Ideal. It's not that you can't in a lot less time, but don't do that to yourself. It's stressful enough, I think, trying to put these things together and think of everything. So that's just the first thing I would do, is start to look at some exhibit builder kinds of people who have the experience in coming to the table with ideas and not just materials. I don't. I think that's just generally speaking in any printer of any kind is what I like. I like to have that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think that, like, having somebody that thinks outside the box to help you
Yeah,
figure out those things is going to be really beneficial, especially
yeah,
if what you do maybe isn't the most interesting thing in the world.
yeah.
Figuring out, like, what's some little hook that you could have at your booth to draw people in. Like,
Yes.
whether it's like a mini photo booth or like some little something tactical that you can like play with at the booth, because I know me, and when I am walking that trade show floor, I am not giving people eye contact.
Yeah.
I have a system. I'm looking above their heads to see the placards, to see, like, okay, is this somebody, because I know if they give me eye contact, they're going to lure me in. And so
Yeah.
they're going to get me. But if it's a booth where I'm like, oh, this actually looks kind of interesting, I actually want to touch that thing, or I want to
Yeah.
experience that thing, see what it's all about. Like, that's a way to really kind of, get more people coming in.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you're the promotional product kind of side of things, or prizes.
A
That's can
wheel.
be
Everyone
that's
loves a spinning wheel.
everyone loves a spinning wheel.
I have one in my basement. It's
It
it's
you
really
know
fun.
it does work. I mean,
Everyone loves a prize.
I would not walk right by a wheel. I gotta admit.
I mean, and it's really not expensive, guys. But okay, so planning your booth. So we talked
Yeah.
about that. So now let's talk about the outreach that you should be doing before the big day.
Yeah, yeah. So, think about, what kind of list do you have as far as, people that are going to hopefully come to this thing. Now, I know that a lot of organizations are notorious about not sharing the information of um, people who are going to be in attendance or anything like that, and that's fine. But they probably at least will be, if you are an exhibitor, they will surely share the information, or you'll be able to get the information of other exhibitors. And those people are not all going to be your competitors. They're going to be people who are probably worth, trying to have as allies to co-promote your presence there. So I think that's really an important thing. I also think one other thing that I should mention is people obsess sometimes about where they are, where their booth is, and
They put us in this
they put us in
aisle.
the back, or they put
We're
us.
in the we're next to these people, and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean,
I've
it's
heard that a
like,
lot.
yeah. So they pre doom and gloom themselves, like to be, oh well, we're not going to be able to. We'll see what happens. Yeah, okay. So um, that don't worry about that as much, because I think really, if something is a good attraction, a good destination, people will find you, especially if you have warmed them up in the beforehand. So,
Can I say
I
something
think,
else?
yeah,
So
please.
we talked about the attendee list sometimes being
Yeah.
difficult to get. What about the media list? What about
Mm,
the people from the media who are going to be
yes.
there going to booth to booth to booth? If you can get your hands on a media list, I highly recommend you reach out to as many of those media outlets as you can to let them know you're going to be there, and let them know, like, hey, if you want to stop by and take a video or whatever, we can
Yeah.
give you a product demo, because any exposure you can get from the people in the media, they're probably going to be posting during the event, during the trade show, and then that may attract more people who are at the event. Oh, they posted that video on that thing. Oh, let's go see that booth tomorrow or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. What wonderful point. I mean, that's a good
I know
one.
this because I was media. So that was me in my former life. When I would go to trade
Yeah.
shows, we got to go for free because we were part of media, but that's what we did. Like, we would cover events. We had a crazy following in a blog. And so we would go and we'd learn about products. We'd do videos, we would interview people. And so that was part of what we did. But then we were also making deals for brand partnerships.
Yeah.
So we had
Yeah.
twofold, and I'll talk more about this in the next episode. So make sure you tune into that one, everybody.
Well, and it's a good thing when you're working with a marketing person who can help you think about the kind of topics that you might even suggest to that media person. So it's not purely what you're selling, it's your reason for being, and what are some of the topics. I think this is sort of true for PR in general, is what are the things that these folks typically write about? Is there something that you can see from the last few articles? Usually what we're looking at is there something from the past that shows that we've paid attention to this particular media person? Especially if you're at a trade show, I think there's certain people, there's certain very specific kinds of media that are going to be there. So if possible, the marketing person should take a look at who is going to be in the area, and can you sort of pitch them based on something they've written about, not just what you do and not just what you sell, but a topic that is relevant to what they've written about that your product or service touches.
I love that. I have a perfect example because we often would go to certain booths that sold car seats,
Mm,
because I was in the baby product manufacturing, juvenile products. And
yeah,
so we would go to the booths that had, like, oh, we just came out with a new car seat that, for example, like, it has a little clip that if you accidentally forget your child in the car, it'll send a message to your phone. So it was all around
yeah,
like baby safety, which was like a huge thing for us. So that was like, oh, perfect. We can do an article and like put this out, do a video, and kind of show people how the car seat works. So yes, figuring out some sort of angle that would be relevant to that particular media outlet that would be helpful for you to kind of showcase your thing, whatever it is you're
yeah.
selling.
Yeah, and that's a big third party credibility thing. If you can get one, it's fantastic, because you can share that out all over the place.
I mean, content is
So
content, baby.
yeah, yeah,
we got
and
we got to work it.
yeah, and here's another thing as I'm just thinking about it is, this still is maybe the before, but it's not too early to think about a little bit of a e-blast series, and each one should be a little different. It shouldn't just be, we're going to be there, we're going to be there, we're going to be there. What is it that you might be either speaking about, and if you're not speaking, then what are some things that we would look forward to talking to you about? Maybe something you've written as far as a blog or would like to write. Make each time impactful. I don't think you need to have 17 touches. It can be just 2. It can be 3, but what each time, make it a little bit different, because really nobody is going to love hearing too much about, especially in the very beginning when it's far out, like all this stuff of a date, save the date kind of thing. It can be in your email, but it doesn't have to take the lead. It's really more towards the last pre-message that you want to be very, very direct. Okay, don't forget, in 2 weeks, we're going to be here and we're going to be at this booth. Then you can do that. But make it worth their while, besides just, hey, all about us.
Yeah. And then, so we're reaching out to people through the email list that you currently have for your business. We're reaching out through the email list you hopefully will get for the attendees and the media. And then also on social, you could be posting on your LinkedIn business page, on your personal page, let people know, I'm going to be there. Does anyone want to meet for coffee? Like, make it personal. On your personal page. On the business page, it's, yes, here's our booth. Here's what we're going to be talking about. Here's what we're going to be exhibiting. Okay, so can we talk now about the during while we're there?
Yeah.
What are some best practices?
Yeah, so here's the part that a lot of people mess up big time, is they don't think about the equipment that they will need when they're there to maximize their presence. So you don't need the highest end camera, but you better have some good pictures. And I have seen certain things where someone accepted an award and it was a really junky iPhone picture and video. I mean, there's no cleaning up to it. Shaky camera in the hand, and even the screen was a little dirty. It's just like, you can't fix that. So make sure, okay, do we have a good camera? And if we have an iPhone, do we have someone who's pretty good at taking pictures? I like to even have, if possible, a nice tripod that doesn't cost a lot of money. Put a camera on there, film the part that you want. That's just it's not even that much money.
Yeah, or just a unipod. Like, do you have a unipod where it's just a stick?
A unipod.
It's basically just like a stick.
Yeah,
I would bring those to the trade shows because they were smaller. They were easier to manage, and so it basically allows you to just like have a stand. It's like it's on a stand. Yeah,
and I think that's one thing. The other thing is, if you are going to have any kind of conversations with anyone that you think would be worthwhile, if you're going to do a live demo, let's say, of a product, we need to be able to hear you, and we need to be able to hear the subject that you're talking to. If we don't have that, all we're going to have is some captions and you going like, and that's not a great kind of thing to have.
So for those of you who are watching on YouTube or Spotify, sorry if you're just listening and you're not hearing this, you're not seeing this. I have this thing that I just dropped. Hold on a second. I'm coming back, I swear. This is what we do. We don't do edits here. It's a little thing that you clip into the bottom of your phone, and then you get 2 little microphones. And these are like little lapel mics, and it's all just through Bluetooth. You just stick this on the end of your iPhone, and then you give the 2 people talking these 2 little microphones to clip on, and the sound is a million times better, especially if you're in a convention hall. The sound in there sucks. It's the worst. Exactly. So I love this damn thing. And this is great for just outside too. And they're so cheap. Yeah. It was like $25 on Amazon. Just go buy one.
Yeah.
I'll put a link in the video for all of you.
Yeah. Well, it's one less thing that you got to think about, you know? You don't want to have to go like, oh, who has a microphone? Who has a camera? Yeah. Just, do a little pre-production in that sense and think about those pieces of equipment. So that's a really good thing to do. And then from there, there's one thing that I do think is really good to set up, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, which is geofencing. We're probably going to talk about this again in the in another episode too, but I can't speak enough about how geofencing an area, like around the area where you will exhibit, can capture some people who pass through that area as far as their information. Now, this sounds.
I'm so
Don't worry.
intrigued. What is this? I don't even know what this is.
Yeah, so essentially, think of it in layman's terms. Think of it as you're walking through an area, and if if at the certain right time, you are getting a kind of an ad almost on your phone. If you go to, like, let's say a certain website or something like that, and you will see this message pop up that could be all about see us at booth number blah blah blah, and or even just something about the brand, and they are able to see that right there on their phone, and everybody's going to have their phone out. They're not going to not
Yeah.
have their phone. So if they pass by within a pre-drawn area that you set up digitally, then they can pretty much be people that you have captured as far as their name, certainly their email address, some other things that will allow you to market to them after the show. But that's an opportunity right now. So geofencing within the area of your booth, or perhaps where they enter the arena, the area. I think that's been a good thing for us, and it's very easy to set up.
Is that different from like when the trade show has that thing where you can pay to have that scanny thing at the booth, and then people scan their badges so that you can, because I know that they usually charge a lot for that to be able to capture who came to your booth. This geo fencing thing, is that different?
This is a little different, but that is a very good idea too. Very good idea. So, and it's very much the same principle. It's just the function is a little different.
Okay.
So, but you're right. If someone has a QR code kind of thing and they want to scan it, and you are able to capture their information, same principle, really. It's just that's just a little different. Could be even more direct. Whereas they have to come to you, perhaps, let's say, to scan something like your booth. Whereas this doesn't necessarily have to be coming to your booth, getting a scan from you directly. So there's nothing wrong, though, with having both of those things going on, really.
Okay.
Then you've really covered your bases.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then what else can they do during the event to like capture, clearly collecting business cards? That's one of those things. What are some other things that an exhibitor should be thinking about during their time at the trade show?
Yeah, so if you're at that show, I would not put as much thought into things like what kind of tabletop sheet should we have, or it is good to have good signage. Yeah, you got to have something that's nice and visible, which is underrated. People can come to your booth, but if they don't know who you are, it's not going to be something where they're going to spend a lot of time or even stay there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always see that the way we should. So you're like, how many times have you come up to a booth and you're like, okay, so what is this? Who are you guys?
What do you guys do? What is this?
Yeah, you don't want that. You want something where it's very good, like within 2 seconds, somebody knows who you are and what you do. The easiest thing in the world to address this is two banner displays. So you've seen these things, they just roll right out and they stand up displays. They're not a whole lot of money, and you will be able to have your logo, your name, some bullet points very quickly of what you do, and they can be different from one another too. So just having stuff like that will instantly get rid of that question, at least the question of who are you? But hopefully, what you do as well.
That's like 90% of the challenge is getting people to step into the booth.
Yeah.
Because if they don't if they're not attracted to something that that intrigues them and makes them want to step in, like, you've lost them and they've moved on.
Yeah, yeah, and I think then once they have, you've had experience with this. Is what are you going to give them? And there are many things that you can give them. Some can be a little playful, and some can be very much related to your brand. But I personally think if you're going to do any kind of thing that is a give to them kind of
Like a
thing right off of
promotional.
the table, yeah,
Hmm.
a promotional item, um, don't just maybe go for the hot thing that sounds good, that has no connection to your brand at all, has, you know, let's say, okay, you gave them an iPad. Not you gave them, but they won an iPad. If somebody wins an iPad, are they really going to remember that you were the one who gave them the iPad? Maybe, but what connection do they have to your brand for an iPad? Like that doesn't really do anything. Um, if anything, if you want to give them something, then at least give it something that has your logo on it, or something engraved if possible. That can be a little expensive too, but at least there's a connection there. So whatever it is that you're going to give away, and I know that promotional product vendors are going to come at you and go, oh, well, this is really hot. This is really selling. People love this. Look at it with the eye of, yeah, but what does that have to do with what I'm selling? Like, why are people going to remember that about me? Is there something on that thing that's going to lead them back to my website, like a code or something like that? Then, okay, now we're talking. But I would not go all in on this super expensive thing that is only interesting and it may get people, but it doesn't have any connection to your brand. You're just going to spend a fortune on it. So I think about that strategically.
Okay, great. So we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I want to talk about the after, the follow
Yeah,
up. Can you
yeah,
give us some tips on the follow up?
yeah. So the follow up, I think the timeline is probably the most important thing. Think about when you go to any conference of any kind. Well, you're probably pretty pumped about it, and it's still fresh in your mind, and you're coming back to the office, and a day or two, you're still thinking about it. Some of the things that you learned, and you're still it's still top of mind. Well, if you're an exhibitor and you're thinking about the people who have come to your booth, let's say, or the people that's been captured by some geofencing, then what you want to do as soon as possible, like within a couple of days, is send out an e-blast to those people, whether you saw them or capture their information, and send them a blast of, hey, thanks for coming. And hopefully, if we spoke with you, then let's put something on the calendar to continue our conversation. And you can phrase that however you want, but the point is that you're not waiting a week to get in touch with them, because it's already out of sight, out of mind by that point. Oh yeah, who was that? So
Oh, yeah.
maybe a picture of the booth, a picture of you for visual reference. Because what do we really have when we come back from these things? We have a goodie bag full of one sheets. So I'm not telling you not to do a one sheet. That you probably should. But even so, like, they don't know who you are, like, offhand, unless they really hit it off with you. They don't know who you are now. So get back into their brain very quickly, as soon as possible. And definitely don't wait until after the show to set it up. You want to be ready
Yeah.
to shoot it out.
And I would say, even go as far as, going back to while you're at the event, if you have a conversation with somebody who came up to your booth and it's a memorable thing that you guys talked about, jot down some notes, keep a notebook. I met
Yeah.
with Bob from XYZ Manufacturing. He told me about his dog. We,
Yeah.
all the little things that, Michael Scott would do, that would, like, keep track of all of the things you guys talked about, so that when you get back, and it's the week after, instead of sending out the same thing to everybody, especially the people that you connected with one-on-one, make it a personal email.
Yeah.
hope you enjoyed your flight back to Tallahassee, hope the kids are doing well, whatever. It makes a difference, I think.
It does.
Because if I just get a generic, like, so glad you visited our booth, here's a link to our website, I'm like, delete. So if there's a way that you can figure out ahead of time how to keep track of the conversations you had during the event, I think it's going to pay off.
Yeah, and I would just add real quick is the possibility of you having preset one-on-one meetings during the show, which do not have to be long. They can be 15, 20 minutes, let's say. But let's say there's at least 2 of you going to be there, maybe 3 of you going to be there. Have someone manning the booth or 2 people man the booth. And then one of you, it can be just a small table. You don't have to have a big thing separately. But is there something where you can talk privately and set up a one-on-one in advance even of the show? Okay, come there. Great. We're down for 11 o'clock on Wednesday. Come by the booth. It'll be great talking to you. And you can probably do a text reminder about that. So that's really something that I don't see a lot of. And every time I have seen it, though, I'm just like, man, that's smart. You should
I'm going to talk a lot about that in our next episode.
Yeah.
But like, I love it when the booths have like the secret room behind the wall.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you go in there and it's like, there's a tiny table. Well, if it's nice, there's like a nice table. Usually it's stuffed with a bunch of crap they don't want people seeing, like all of the empty boxes, all of like the backup product. But then there's a table and then there's like water and then some snacks. I love going into that secret room. It makes me feel like a VIP.
Oh,
so get in that room, people. Call ahead, email, get those appointments set up. And we're going to talk more in the next episode about all that. But, I think making it intentional with like, hey, we really want you to visit our booth. We would love for you to come. Can you come at this time or that time? Because we want to make sure we don't miss you is a nice message. Like, we want to make sure we get to talk with you. Let's set up an appointment. Because like, you never know, like if they may come shuffling by and then you went to the bathroom or you went and you got lunch or whatever. And then you missed the opportunity, even though they're like, oh yeah, we'll come by. Try to nail down a time because we'll come by, because even if people make appointments with you, they still may not come. It's a trade show. It's crazy. They may get distracted. They may be like, oh crap, we had an appointment. We forgot. I think so many things are going on, but if you have an appointment, you'll increase your chances you actually get to talk to that person.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts? Because we are out of time.
Yeah. Just think about these things are not the cheapest, and we know that. And even the ones that are modest trade show booths and other types of events, they're not necessarily cheap to exhibit. And but if you do, I think then think about it in terms of what am I looking to get out of it? What are my goals? And to your point, Julie, it's okay if we do have a secret booth or a side table, how many of those kinds of people do we need to see in order to take the next step? So understand about your sales, understand about your typical conversion or close rate with people who are qualified. I guarantee most people don't think about that at all. They just kind of say, okay, well, hopefully we get some names in here. No, go in there with a purpose of really having some conversations you can look back on and say, okay, we talked to 20 people in 4 days. Let's see these 20 people and let's try to keep that conversation going. How many of those take the next step in our process? Because it's all about the momentum. It does not stop with the trade show. If anything, the trade show is the initiation point. It's not the close, and you're probably not going to sell something right then and there. So if you have a complex sale, don't have the vision of closing them, converting them. You're just starting a connection with them. It can be a deeper connection though, so make the most of it.
I love it. Those are fantastic final thoughts, Dan. All right, we are out of time, and thank you so much for joining us. Once again, I am Julie Nichols of Julie Nichols Marketing.
And I am Dan Gershenson of Caliber Brand Strategy and Content Marketing.
And we are the Lead Magnets Podcast, and I hope that you tune in again to hear us again soon. Thanks so much. Take care.
Take care, everybody.